So let's now move on, excuse me, to 4A. And our hot or cold question there is comes from a team that just was so dominant, especially last year in the state finals, and that's Mount Vernon Fortville. The question is, Mount Vernon Fortville will repeat as state champs. And for me, hot or cold, that is a cold take. Quarterback Garrick Slonaker is at Georgetown College. He had a 3,000-yard season with 34 touchdowns. Their leading rushers, Keegan LaBelle and Trey Egler, 1,500 yards and 800 rushing yards, respectively. They're both gone. The leading receiver, Ashton Gentry, is gone as well. So, all that firepower from an offense that was just so electric, so good. The last couple of seasons, I mean, arguably the best offense in the state. It's just gonna be too much to replace for Mount Vernon Fortville. I still think they can have a good season. I still think they can be kind of knocking on the door in 4A. But overall, I just don't see them, getting over that hurdle again. Just missing so much talent from last year.
Yeah, I agree. This is definitely a cold take as well. They didn't even make the preseason total top 25, and if you're returning state champ, you at least get that thrown at you,
especially in the top 3 classes too.
Yeah, within the top 3 classes. What's surprising though, when you look at the Max Preps preseason total top 25, there's only one school accounted for in 5A, but there's a whole handful accounted for in 4A. 4A is so much tougher than 5A right now. So yeah, that goes to show you how wide open 5A really is. And I was wrong. There's 2 Maryvilles. Andrian is not is a different one. There's 2 Maryvilles ranked in the Max Preps preseason top 25. So yeah, see, we're not experts in this whatsoever.
Right. Well, there's just there's so much, and because it's high school, like there's no ESPN experts, there's no CBS articles, there's no NBC, whatever Pro Football Focus to like go.
Oh, there are Indy Star articles
that are behind
if you're willing to pay.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely a work in progress and patchwork. But John Harrell, you come in clutch as always. Max Preps, you've got some good supplemental information as well, and that's really what you have to live and die by when you cover high school sports.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a cold take for me. I mean, if you can't even crack that list as a returning state champ, it's gonna be tough. And there's just there's some really it's a deep pool in 4A. And then you add in schools like Brebuef, who's the 3A runner up, who returns quite a bit, minus defensive end Joe Strickland. But they return quite a bit. So the pool just got deeper. And when you are in the class with Roncalli, you can never count out the Roncalli Rebels. So yeah, it's a cold take.
Well, hey, that's a perfect transition, because when you're looking at toughest sectionals in 4A, look no further than Sectional 21. I mean, Roncalli was the number 1 team in 4A heading into sectionals. They're 25-2 the last 2 seasons. You've got number 6 Mooresville. There you have 4 straight winning seasons. 3 of those have been 10+ win seasons. You've got Northview, who finished ranked last season. And oh, by the way, you add Brebuef, the 3A runner-ups from last season, who have an electric amount of talent coming back. So that sectional, I mean, it's one of those things we talked about a little bit when we did the Hoosier High School Huddle for basketball. There's some sectionals where we're like, man, you just kind of, it's a shame that one of those teams has to lose so early in the process, because it's going to go.
Oh, it's a shame 3 of those schools have to lose so early.
Well, because you're going to look at that, like in a year, we're going to be doing this show next year, and you're going to look at it and be like, oh, they lost in the sectional semifinals. You're like, oh, but wait, it's because they had probably 3 other state finals contenders in that same sectional.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's the same one for me there as well. I mean, when you have 3 schools that are ranked in the preseason top 25 with Mooresville, Brebuef, and Roncalli, that's a tough one. And yeah, so, and all of those schools are producing talent that is moving on to all different levels of the collegiate scene. So that sectional 21 is going to be fun. Unfortunately, there's a couple schools. It's also got some of the IPS schools in there, unfortunately for them, that they have to go up against that high level of competition in sectionals. But hey, Brebuef, Mooresville, and Roncalli, that's going to be a battle, man.
Well, hey, like we said for those basketball sections, it's a good palate cleanser for the rest of the tournament. And you mentioned Mooresville. We both mentioned Mooresville. That's where I'm going for my player to watch as well. Mooresville quarterback Nick Patterson. He threw for 2,970 yards last season. He completed 70% of his passes. He had 37 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He's also the team's leading rusher from last season. He rushed for 700 plus yards 2 seasons ago as well. To put his numbers in perspective, he threw for 700 more yards and 16 more touchdowns in 3 fewer games than the season prior. And in comparison to state finals winning quarterback Garrett Sloneker, he threw just 50 fewer yards. He had a better completion percentage and more touchdown passes by playing 4 fewer games. So in fewer games, he was as productive as the guy who led probably the best offense in the state last season. So that bodes well for a strong season. That's why I think Nick Patterson is going to be the player to watch in 4A.
So my player to watch in 4A was one of the better players in 3A last year. That is Brebuef quarterback Nolan Buckman. Nolan Buckman really kind of just appeared on the scene as far as like in the name of the quarterbacks around the state of Indiana and he really made a name for himself in that state championship game. Really started that game off really strong, keeping up, going toe to toe with Indiana Mr. Football Brady Allen, Brady Allen was a top level recruit across the entire country. And Nolan really stood toe to toe with him in that game as much as he could. Nolan's also one of these guys that he continuously gets better and better each season. So, the steps we saw him take from his sophomore year to his junior year were unbelievable. So I'm really excited to see what he's able to do and what kind of step forward he's able to take going from his junior year to his senior year now, especially now that there's going to be a lot of attention on him. He came into last year kind of under the radar, all eyes at Brebuef were on Joe Strickland, rightfully so. And then also all eyes in 3A were on Brady Allen, rightfully so. And Nolan Buckman just he stepped up. He led a really high-powered offense that was, if the defense wasn't clicking, the offense was firing on all cylinders. This was a team that took out the number 1 team in the state in their regional. So that was, it was an exciting game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of progress he's made from junior year to senior year and how that run to a state championship game has helped him in that growth and also shown him what else he needs to work on.
Yeah, it's going to be a good season for Brebuef, I think, this coming season. Looking at dark horses and state champs. For me, my dark horse is going to be East Central. They finished number 10 last season in 4A. They had a 10-3 record. They're in the top 30 in terms of points per game in the state. They were 34th in the state in points allowed per game, 14 points, and 21st in terms of margin victory. They return a lot of starters. Quarterback Cole Burton is back. Their leading rushers Josh Ringer and Ryan Brotherton are back. Leading receiver Eli Aston is back. So they're going to have a strong season, I think. But my state champion for 4A is going to be Mooresville. They return a top 5 offense in the state last season. They finished 6th in 4A. Whenever you have a Mr. Football candidate, you're in prime position. Nick Patterson had the Pioneers in the semi-state 2 seasons ago. They play above their class in 6 of 9 games this season, so they'll be seasoned come tourney time. I really think Mooresville is going to be a fun team to watch. And can hoist the trophy at the end of the year in 4A. So I'm going with Mooresville.
So my sleeper, it's kind of hard to pick them as a sleeper as well, just because of their history within the state of Indiana. But my sleeper is Roncalli. Like I said earlier, you just can't ever really sleep on the Roncalli Rebels. It's always tough. I mean, they're always one of the best teams out there. So it kind of feels weird to pick them as a dark horse, but they haven't been there recently. They haven't been on top of the mountain recently. So you have to look at them as a dark horse to get back there. But yeah, you're right. Mooresville looks like to be the class of 3A. I mean, and you have to pick them until proven otherwise. If they come out and they just kind of look mundane, it's like, okay, yeah, we can start looking elsewhere, but numbers don't lie. And right now the numbers do indicate that Mooresville should be standing atop Class 3A come Thanksgiving weekend.